Kate Mattice
has joined the meeting.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Robert Hostelka with the VRE. Just a few quick reminders on the WebEx screen controls for this morning's meeting. To mute or unmute your microphone, click the microphone icon on your computer. That's the red icon on the left-hand side of the WebEx screen control window. To raise your hand for questions or comments, open up the participant link, which is the blue icon in the center of the WebEx screen controls. To indicate you have a question or comment, click on the hand icon next to your name in the participant window. We'll be getting started shortly. Thank you so much.
A participant has joined the meeting.
Katie Crystal
has joined the meeting.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Robert Hostelka with the VRE. Just a few quick reminders for the WebEx screen controls. To mute or unmute your microphone, click on the microphone icon on your computer. That's the red icon on the left-hand side of the WebEx screen control window. To raise your hand for questions or comments, open up the participant link, which is the blue icon in the center of the WebEx screen controls. To indicate you have a question or comment, click on the hand icon next to your name in the participants window. We'll be getting started very shortly. Thank you.
A participant has joined the meeting.
James Walkinshaw.
Has joined the meeting.
Andrea Bailey. James, are you there? Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And I'd like to, first of all, I hope everyone's doing well, safe and well. And also at this time, Ms. Franklin, I want to congratulate you on a well-run PRTC meeting the other day. So hopefully we can live up to your standards there. To get started, I ask Rich to please review the participation instructions for the board members. Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as a reminder, to indicate that you have a question or a comment and wish to raise your hand, please click on the participant button and then on the hand icon next to your name in the participant list. Keep the participant window open, which should show up on the right side of your screen. Mr. Hostelka will be monitoring the hand raising and will let the chairman know if there are any questions. When called upon, please announce your name and to whom your question or comment is directed. There will be a roll call vote for each item. Please follow the roll call and be ready to unmute your name when it is called. Mr. Chair.
Okay, we're going to get started now. I want to welcome Mr. Gary Snellings to the board. Welcome, Gary. There will be a CEO search committee meeting right after this meeting. Members of the CEO search committee will be asked to remain on the WebEx so that the committee chair, Katie Crystal, can move you into closed session. The closed session will then be held on Zoom. WebEx will remain open and muted so that the committee can certify the closed session before it adjourns. Would the clerk please call the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Alcorn.
Walter Alcorn here.
Ms. Bailey.
Maria Bailey here.
Mr. Banks. Ms. Bennett Parker.
Here.
Ms. Crystal.
Here.
Ms. Franklin.
Margaret Franklin is here.
Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Ms. Lawson. Mr. McLaughlin. Ms. Shelton. Mr. Skinner.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mr. Snelling. Mr. Stork. Mr. Walkinshaw.
Walkinshaw here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. So the action items we start with, Rich, and that's going to go to action item 3A, resolution 3-05-2020, finding need to conduct the May 15th, 2020 meeting electronically. We have a preliminary resolution necessary to conduct this virtual meeting. Rich, will you give the board an overview of item number 3, please?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everybody. This resolution is intended just to confirm that meeting by electronic means is authorized because the nature of the declared emergency makes it both impractical and unsafe for the operations board to assemble in a single location today. Furthermore, the resolution does identify that the agenda items in front of the operations board today are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations of the operations board and the discharge of the operations board lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. And finally, this also confirms that the operations board meeting agenda is encompassed within the continuity of operations ordinances adopted by several member localities of the Virginia Railway Express Operations Board to assure continued operations during this public health emergency resulting from COVID-19.
Thank you, Rich. Do I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 3-05-2020, finding need to conduct the May 15, 2020 meeting electronically?
Mr. Chairman, this is Katie Crystal. I move that we accept the resolution.
Thank you. Do I have a
Mr.
second?
Chairman, this is Elizabeth Bennett Parker. I second the resolution.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions regarding this resolution?
Chairman Skinner, I do have a question from Ms. Lawson.
Ms. Lawson, go ahead, please.
Okay, she's put her hand down.
Okay. All right, thank you. So I will now have the clerk call by name resolution and yes or no.
Mr. Alcorn?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Banks? Ms. Bennett Parker? Ms. Crystal?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin? Mr. Kelly? Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Mr. Skinner?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Snelling?
I'm in the VRE meeting right now.
Mr. Walkinshaw?
Walkinshaw, aye.
We have missed Ms. Franklin's vote, Mr. Kelly's vote, and Mr. Snelling's vote. Are you guys still there?
Ms. Franklin is a yes.
Yeah, Mr. Kelly's a yes. I apologize. I keep seeing you drop me back to mute.
And Mr. Snelling? No vote. Mr. Chairman, this motion passes.
All right. Thank you very much. Dr. K.
Mr. Chairman, stand by for just one moment. I need to make sure that Ms. Lawson doesn't have a question. Ms. Lawson, do you have a question?
No, sorry. Do I still have my hand up?
That's perfect. Now it's down. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jersey.
Okay. You good to go? Okay, the next will be the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
Supervisor Bailey, I move that we approve the agenda.
Elizabeth Bennett Parker, I second the agenda.
Does anyone have any changes to the agenda at this time? If not, then will the clerk please call roll for the vote on the approval of agenda?
Mr. Alcorn?
Alcorn, aye.
Ms. Bailey?
Bailey, aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Ms. Shelton? Mr. Skinner?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Snelling? Mr. Walkinshaw?
Aye.
This motion passes.
Next action item will be to approve the minutes of the February 21st, 2020 VRE Operations Board meeting. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the February 21st meeting?
Move approval, Mr. Chairman. This is Katie Crystal.
Second, Supervisor Bailey.
Does anyone have any corrections to the minutes? Okay, having no questions, I'll have the clerk please call the roll call for the vote. Approving the minutes from the February 21st VRE Operations Board meeting.
Mr. Alcorn?
Aye.
Ms. Bailey?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Abstain.
Mr. Skinner?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Snelling?
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw?
Aye.
And that passes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we move on to the Chief Executive Officer's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, good morning, Operations Board members and others. I too hope all of you and your families remain safe and healthy. For the past 64 days, since Governor Northam declared a state of emergency in response to the spread of COVID-19, VRE staff and contracted service providers have seamlessly transitioned to this new environment. A few days prior, I activated our continuity of operations plan. Consistent with this plan, senior management responsible for critical functions within the organization were assembled, and we continue to meet daily. We immediately stood up processes and actions for staff to work from remote environments, close the headquarters location to the public, and minimize non-essential activity at all facilities. We launched multiple enhanced protocols for managing service levels, our supply chain, financial position, resource planning, business processes, and communications, to name a few. As further guidance from the CDC, state and local health officials, and other resources became available, we implemented additional health and safety measures. These additional measures included increased frequency of cleaning and disinfecting trains and facilities. We implemented social distancing and increased PPE requirements for all frontline personnel, including train crews, equipment maintenance, facility maintenance, and cleaning crews. Social distancing, enhanced protective gear, and facial coverings have become the norm. Throughout, we have maintained a continuity of operations. Invoices are processed and payments have been made. Purchase orders, task orders, solicitations, and other key procurement activities have not been delayed. Planning, design, and construction activities continue. Locomotive, passenger car, and facilities preventive and lifecycle maintenance projects have forged ahead. Most importantly, all these activities continue safely. Combined, approximately 200 personnel per day are working to ensure a safe and healthy commute for our passengers, workers, and to date, no COVID-19 positive test results. Next. For ridership, just wanted to share with you at least relative to where we are at just slightly before COVID-19 to where we've been for the past several weeks. Ridership is down approximately 95% compared to the same period last year. And then since the stay-at-home orders were implemented in March, ridership is just a mere 5% of pre-COVID-19 levels. We're currently operating at a reduced service level, or what we refer to as our S schedule. Next. On-time performance. I'll point you, for those that can see the screen or see the presentation, I'll point you to the sort of the right bar charts that look at system-wide on-time performance. Obviously, in March and April, compared to our previous period, you know, we're well above that, and just wanted to leave you with at least the visual here that we've been operating above 90%. And for those that recall, in 2019, the system-wide April number reflects the implementation of PTC that we were going through at that time. And while I'm here, I do want to just briefly update, as I've reported before, you know, we had a couple of incidences, one on April 20th that was north of the Long Bridge, another incident that was about a mile or greater than a mile south of the Crystal City Station on May 5th. For both of those incidences, the lead jurisdictions are continuing their investigations, and we anticipate having those investigations closed here hopefully within the next couple, 2-3 weeks, at which time I'll report back to the operations board the final conclusions, if you will, from those investigations. Next, I wanted to talk a little bit about our financial position. I shared this information with the Operations Board last week, and this was the update through the end of April. And as noted there, the previous projections that we shared with you at the end of March as it relates to fare revenue was slightly higher, but at the end of the day, as it relates to fiscal year 20, we're currently projecting a net deficit from operations of about $2.2 million. Now, this is before we add back the $1.1 million of emergency grant funding that we received in early April from DRPT, and then we will soon update these projections for the use, if you will, of federal funding from the CARES Act. And just as a reminder, through the CARES Act, $86.1 million of funding will be available to VRE primarily for reimbursement of eligible expenses. And then just simply combined, we believe that these two sources will likely ensure that we end the fiscal year balanced without a net deficit from operations. For fiscal year 2021, just wanted to give you sort of a narrative outlook, if you will. As we enter the fiscal year on July 1st, we do anticipate ridership revenue to be well below previously budgeted levels. As the current restricted activities are relaxed, we do anticipate some level of ridership revenue increases starting this summer. We are likely not to see ridership revenue return to previously anticipated levels until possibly the end of the fiscal year. The CARES Act funding will likely continue to backstop lost fare revenues for FY 2021. We're currently, as an update, we're just currently working through the application process to retrieve these funds. And I do want to note, we continue to be engaged in review and discussion of additional relief packages as well. As we transition into fiscal year 2021, I will defer actions that are currently in the budget for staff merit bullet increases, new positions, and other discretionary spending as appropriate. I will revisit these actions with the Operations Board at a point in time when the outlook becomes a little clearer. I plan to prepare a monthly update for review with the Operations Board, similar to the format that we just looked at for FY 2020. And this will hopefully inform the Operations Board in a similar style what we are projecting, and obviously help with further discussion. And finally on this, for now, I just simply recommend that we continue our standard practices of amending our FY 2021 budget in December in order to allow us to transition further into the new fiscal year, where we will gain greater clarity of the social and business environment, and frankly, just simply get a better sense of what those revisions would be, would look like. And then finally, welcome back. As restrictions on residents, non-essential workers, and businesses become relaxed in the region, I do anticipate ridership to return. We have been working with all stakeholders and other national and regional transportation providers to identify and further develop best practices for continuing a safe and healthy environment for staff, train crews, and passengers. As ridership returns, the continued emphasis on social distancing, face coverings, disinfecting trains and facilities will be key. To maintain social distancing on board trains, we are providing visual cues in the form of signage, decals, etc. for seating and pathways for the passengers and train crews. Similar to on board the trains, these visual cues will be at the station platforms as well, and you can see that represented at the bottom left.
The participant has left the meeting.
Photo in the slide that's up. Since physical distancing, since physical distancing does minimize the number of seats available on each car, we will effectively monitor ridership and be prepared to lengthen current train concepts ahead of that demand. As demand continues to increase, we will add trains back to the schedule to provide more frequency and number of available seats, again, ahead of demand. We will closely coordinate this activity, of course, with our host railroads. In addition to promoting social distancing, we are continuing to strongly encourage our passengers to wear face coverings consistent with CDC and other guidelines. Since making the use of face coverings mandatory is something the region and other transportation providers are analyzing currently and in some cases implementing, we too are analyzing this as a enhancement to our plan. I'm in discussions, obviously, with legal counsel, other stakeholders regarding enforcement and other liability-related issues with such a mandate. So I will, of course, keep the operations board updated on progress working towards not just the enhancements I've described here, but even further enhancements. We are implementing enhanced processes for disinfecting trains and facilities. After analyzing several application methods, we will soon implement enhanced processes to increase our ability to apply disinfectants and sanitize all passenger cars and related facilities to minimize the spread of viruses. Combined, these efforts are directed to ensuring we can provide a safe and healthy commute for our riders now and as ridership returns. And finally, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to take a moment and thank all of you, healthcare workers, first responders, VRE staff, DRPT staff, our commission staff, staff from member jurisdictions, our host railroads, our contracted service providers, especially our train crews and maintenance and cleaning teams, and our vendors and suppliers for their continued support, resiliency, and professionalism as we continue to navigate through these unprecedented times. With that, Mr. Chair, if we have any questions.
Yes, do you have any questions for Rich at this time? Do we have any hands up?
Chairman Skinner, I do not have any.
All right. Well, I would like to take this time, and I hope I'm speaking for the board too. Rich, I want to thank you for your leadership that you've done so far. Everything is running pretty smooth. Some things we can't prevent, but those that we control, we can control, and we have controlled it. So, Rich, to you and all your staff, thank you very much. Hopefully, we'll continue on with success. Now we're going to go into...
Chairman Skinner?
Yes.
Hi, this is Michael McLaughlin from DRPT.
Yes.
Hi, I have a question for Rich. Rich, thanks for sending out you send out updates every week. And I noticed on an update I received, I think, end of last week, that ridership was actually up 10% in the past month. It had gone up, I think, from about 2,100 to about 2,400. Do you have any preliminary information from this week? Did it go up more? I think a lot of this may have to, and I'm asking because I wanted to see what the effect of the governor's announcement about the slow reopening of the economy is having. And if you already covered that, my apologies.
No, I can, thanks, Mr. McLaughlin, for that question. What we've seen over the last couple of weeks, we have seen an uptick in our average daily ridership. And so, and again, somewhat marginal, if you will, but I will say that we're pretty confident that, a couple of weeks ago, we did hit the floor, if you will, in ridership. And yes, it is slowly starting to tick back up. And again, at the level of numbers we're talking about from an average daily ridership, an additional 20, 30, 40 people is noticeable in the overall numbers. So, okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Moving in. Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, this is Supervisor Bailey. I just want to thank Rick for all the updates and all of to give us a sense of comfort that everything is moving right along. And I think you've done a great job and just making sure that everybody not only was safe, but healthy. And I know that's a big job based upon, the mechanisms that we're talking about. And so it gives us more clarity in terms of moving forward on all the cylinders that we need to work with and on. So just thank you for your detailed information. And the weekly report really helps a lot.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Appreciate that comment. Before I go on, anybody else? Okay, we'll go on to the VRE riders and public comments. The public comments for this meeting are being taken electronically. Members of the public need to visit the VRE.org for the link to the public comment forum. The link will remain open throughout this meeting, and the clerk will read all public comments at the end of this meeting. Moving on to 8A. Action item 8A, recommend authorization to extend the amended and restated operation access agreement with CSX Transportation. So I ask Chris now to go ahead and give us an overview of it, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is we're seeking authorization from the Operations Board to recommend to the commissions that we extend our current operating access agreement with CSX Transportation that currently expires June 30th of this year. The extension is to June 30th of 2021. That is something that we have done in the past, or in the past couple of years, seeking these one-year extensions. I just want to draw attention that this year we will be, during that one-year extension period, we will be working with DRPT and of course CSX and all parties involved, transitioning our operating access agreement at some level, to the Virginia Rail Authority through DRPT, and so that in previous years we've asked for that authorization to give us more time to to work with those parties on infrastructure improvements, and since those infrastructure improvements were effectively announced at the end of last year, this is a little bit more simplified, and if it takes all year, I guess it takes all year, but this is something that we'll be doing in parallel. So,
thank you, Rich. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution 8A?
Supervisor Bailey, so moved.
Bennett Parker, second.
Are there any questions or comments?
This is Mike McLaughlin from DRPT. Just one quick comment. Rich, thanks for acknowledging that we're working on parallel agreements with CSX and VRE. I'd already like to note that we're already working with Rich and Steve McIsaac and others on a version of the operating agreement for the future. So, that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. If there's no more questions, will the clerk please call the roll for the vote?
Mr. Alcorn,
Aye.
Ms. Bailey,
Aye.
Mr. Banks,
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker,
Aye.
Ms. Crystal,
Aye.
Ms. Franklin,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Lawson,
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Aye.
Mr. Skinner,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Snelling, Mr. Walkinshaw,
Aye.
and that resolution passes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Action 8B, recommend authorization to extend the access and storage agreement with Amtrak. Rich, will you please give us an overview?
thank you, Mr. Chair. This seeking off the recommendation from the Operations Board to recommend to the commissions that we execute an agreement with Amtrak The current agreement period expires the end of June 30th this year. The previous, or the current agreement actually had a base 5 years with an option for 5 additional years. And when we met with Amtrak on this starting back in August, and as we were going through the current agreement, just to simply amend it became a task, because the 2015 agreement had a lot of references to upcoming policies and upcoming governing factors as it relates to the Passenger Rail Investment Improvement Act. Since that time, a lot of those policies had been put in place, and it was just agreed with the legal counsel that we just go ahead and start with a new agreement, again with a 5-year base period that'll take us out to 2025, and again an additional option for 5 years after that. Essentially, the agreement is the same as what we're currently under, as far as scope of work, costs, those types of things. Those just continue on. So that's my overview, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rich. Do I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 8B?
So move, Supervisor Bailey.
Second, Bennett Parker.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Are there any questions or comments on this item?
Mr. Chair, Katie Crystal with a question.
Please, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So I had noticed with some interest that the Amtrak agreement, or at least the board report describing it, referenced that Amtrak provides coach cleaning and some maintenance of the equipment, which teed up next to our Keolis agreements, which are the next item, seemed a little duplicative. So I wondered if Mr. Dalton or another member of our staff could talk a little more about how the Amtrak services that are part of the contract for cleaning and light maintenance differ from what we engage Keolis to do.
Absolutely, Chair Crystal. So the difference is the light maintenance and particularly the cleaning activities that Amtrak performs. They perform that during the midday layover storage period. And as you know, our trains are laid over at Washington Union Terminal during the midday. There's Amtrak forces on the ground, and they are dedicated to particularly just detrashing and cleaning. And I will say, during the current environment, the midday cleaning, that's one of our enhancements that we've done is actually enhance the midday cleaning, so we're getting disinfected trains, not in the morning, and then of course when those trains return in the afternoon, those trains are disinfected as well. And that's the majority of it. The light repairs, there are no scheduled repairs. What Amtrak forces are prepared to do is that, for example, if a VRE train ends up in Washington Union Terminal and the mechanical forces, after just doing some brief inspections, they find something that is wrong, like a light bulb burned out or something minimal like that, then this agreement allows them to just go in there and correct that, so that train set is fully prepared for its return trip in the PM. So that essentially are the differences, or what the scope for the Amtrak maintenance and cleaning is.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll ask the clerk, please call the roll call for the vote to approve Resolution 8B.
Mr. Alcorn?
Aye.
Ms. Bailey?
Aye.
Mr. Banks?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Aye.
Ms. Shelton,
Aye.
Mr. Skinner,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Snelling, Mr. Walkinshaw.
Aye.
That motion passes.
Mr. Stork is on the call as well.
Oh, Mr. Stork, welcome.
Yes, I'm sorry, I wasn't here in the first 5 minutes or so.
And can I have your vote, sir?
Yes, the vote is aye.
Thank you so much.
I joined about 5 or 10 after at the most. I don't remember.
Okay, terrific. So did you hear item 8A? Or just 8B?
Item 8A.
Okay. Did you have a vote on resolution 8A?
Yes.
8A was the recommendation, authorization to extend the amended and restated operating access agreement with CSX Transportation.
I don't think I can take a vote.
Voted both of those.
Okay. Yeah, I think we'll move on. And now that you're on, we'll make sure we call the name. Action number 8C, recommend authorization to execute an amendment for the second option period and the first year of the second option period of the contract for operating services for commuter rail. Rich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This action is again recommending to the commissions to authorize essentially two things. One would be is to authorize the second and last 5-year option period for the operations agreement with Keolis Rail Services Virginia. And then the second piece is something that we do essentially every year is we amend the agreement to include the upcoming fiscal year budget. So in this case, we're including the fiscal year 21 budget. So again, two distinct things, but and I will say that it has been 10 years since Keolis has taken over the operations, and of course they have another contract that we'll talk about here in a bit as it relates to maintenance. It's been 10 years. They've done a tremendous job, a lot of accomplishments, and they've just essentially been a great partner. So we enthusiastically recommend this authorization. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 8C?
So move, Supervisor Bailey.
Second, Supervisor Shelton.
Thank you. Does anybody have any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call roll for the vote?
Mr. Alcorn,
Aye.
Ms. Bailey,
Aye.
Mr. Banks,
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker,
Aye.
Ms. Crystal,
Aye.
Ms. Franklin,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Lawson,
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin,
Aye.
Ms. Shelton,
Aye.
Mr. Skinner,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Snelling, Mr. Stork,
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that resolution passed.
Thank you. Moving on to 8D, recommend authorization to execute an amendment for the 5th year of the contract for maintenance services for commuter rail. Rich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, the VRE Operations Board is being asked to recommend to the commissions that we execute an amendment for the 5th year of the base period for this maintenance contract. And as stated before, this is just simply to amend the current agreement to include the FY21 budget. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution, please?
Move approval, Mr. Chair. This is Katie Crystal.
This is Lawson, second it.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Katie. That was Ms. Crystal, correct?
Yes.
Correct. I was the one who made the motion.
Thank you. Second, please.
Lawson,
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any comments or discussion?
Mr. Skinner,
Yes, ma'am.
this is Supervisor Bailey. I'm just assuming and count this to my naivety that this includes all adjustments financially for what we're experiencing now?
I'll turn that over to,
Or is that a valid question? That just came to
no,
mind.
that's okay.
Yeah, this is just again, this is simply amending the current agreement to reflect what the fiscal year 21 budget for the maintenance services. And there's a host of fixed price elements within this agreement, but there's also in this authorization, but there's also, some variable cost type items like task order work, so on and so forth. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yes, it does. It's clarity. Thank you.
You bet.
If there's no other comments, I'll ask the clerk to do a roll call for the vote to approve item 8D.
Mr. Alcorn?
Alcorn votes aye, sorry.
Ms. Bailey?
Aye.
Mr. Banks?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Aye.
Ms. Shelton?
Aye.
Mr. Skinner?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Snelling? Mr. Walkinshaw?
Aye.
Mr. Stork,
Chairman?
aye.
Mr. Stork, I'm so sorry. Mr. Stork, aye. Mr. Walkinshaw was an aye, and that motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to 8E, recommend authorization to amend the agreement with the City of Manassas for the operation and maintenance of the parking facility. Rich, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're asking the VRE Operations Board to recommend to the commissions to amend the agreement with the City of Manassas for the operations and maintenance of the parking facility, and that would be the parking structure, the parking garage. Just a couple of things in here. We've had an agreement that essentially identifies responsibilities for operations and maintenance and shares the cost of those activities with the City of Manassas going back to 2009. And the one element of this amendment is just to simply, the current agreement would expire at the end of June of 2020. This gives us another 5-year period with a option to renew an additional 5 years. So that's one element, just to extend the term. The other element is the City of Manassas has identified a project whereby they will install some fixed bicycle facilities within the parking garage. Doesn't affect current spaces or anything like that. And that'll be done at the city's sole cost and expense. So we just wanted to get that reflected in the operations and maintenance agreement as well. So that's my review there, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rich. Do I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 8?
Commissioner Smith, I move its adoption.
Second, Supervisor Bailey.
Have any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll ask the clerk call for the vote.
Mr. Alcorn?
Aye.
Ms. Bailey?
Aye.
Mr. Banks?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Aye.
Ms. Shelton?
Aye.
Mr. Skinner?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Snelling? Mr. Stork?
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that resolution passed.
Thank you. Moving on to 8F, authorization to execute an amendment for the second two-year option to the contract for financial auditing services. Rich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're just seeking authorization from the Operations Board to amend the contract for financial auditing services. This would be for the second and final two-year option period. And of course, this contract is with PB Mayers, LLP of Harrisonburg, Virginia, and that is my summary.
Do I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 8F?
Move, Supervisor Bailey.
Bennett Parker, second.
Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will ask the clerk to roll call for the vote to approve item 8F.
Mr. Alcorn?
Aye.
Ms. Bailey?
Aye.
Mr. Banks?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Aye.
Ms. Shelton?
Aye.
Mr. Skinner?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Snelling? Mr. Stork?
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that resolution passes.
Thank you. Moving on to 8G, authorization to execute a contract for mechanical engineering consulting services. Rich, please give us an
Thank you,
overview.
Mr. Chair. We're seeking authorization from the Operations Board to execute the Mechanical Engineering Consulting Services 7 with STV Incorporated of Fairfax, Virginia for a base year and 4 option years in the amount not to exceed $6 million per year and a total amount of $30 million per year. This is a mechanical engineering consulting contract. It's a task order contract, so any of the work that's performed under this agreement will, if the task orders fall within the CEO's delegation of authority, which is below $100,000, then the CEO will execute those task orders. Anything that's above $100,000, of course, will be brought back to the Operations Board. Pretty critical, as with most of our agreements like this, the Mechanical Engineering Consulting Services provides us that that breadth and depth of skill sets, if you will, as it relates to anything passenger car, rail car related. And so, and of course, having that contract in place that they augment staff in a lot of cases in order to, to oversee and manage what we have as it relates to rolling stock equipment. So that's my summary, Mr. Chair.
Are there any questions or comments?
Do we need a motion?
Oh, you're absolutely right. I apologize. Do I have a motion and a second for the approval of Resolution 8G?
Move Supervisor Bailey.
Second, Supervisor Shelton.
Thank you. Now, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to go the roll call for the approval of 8G.
Mr. Alcorn?
Aye.
Ms. Bailey? Mr. Banks?
Aye. Sorry. Aye.
All right, Mr. Banks?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson? Mr. McLaughlin?
Aye.
Ms. Shelton?
Aye.
Mr. Skinner?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Snelling? Mr. Stork?
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that resolution passes.
Thank you. Action item number 8H, authorization to amend the contract for engineering and environmental services for the Rolling Road Station Platform Extension. Rich, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are recommending amending the contract for engineering and environmental services for the Rolling Road Platform Extension. This amendment primarily will capture the additional work as we integrate scope of this project to include rehabilitating the existing platform structure. Some of you recall we took a similar approach with the Lorden Station platform, where we extended that platform at Lorden, and at the same time, as far as once we let the construction contract and stuff, we were also able to rehabilitate the existing platform. So once the project is finished, then we not only get an extended platform, but the entire station platform area has been refreshed, if you will. So that's what we are seeking the amendment for, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 8H?
Move Supervisor Bailey.
Second, Smith.
So, Mr. Kelly?
Who seconded?
Approved. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
this is James Walkinshaw. Rich, I'm just wondering, could you, one, just give us the timeline for the platform extension project at Rolling Road, and two, and does this change affect the timeline at all?
Let me take the last one first. No, this change doesn't affect the timeline. And the timeline is, I believe, we want to essentially finish the design level effort up predominantly over the summertime, with some anticipation of getting out and soliciting an invitation for bid and an NTP, hopefully in the fall.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Will the clerk please call roll for the vote to approve item 8H?
Mr. Alcorn?
Aye.
Ms. Bailey? Mr. Banks?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Aye.
Ms. Shelton?
Aye.
Mr. Skinner?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Snelling? Mr. Stork?
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, this motion also passed.
Thank you. Okay, action item 8I, as in India, authorization to amend the GEC 7 task order for design services for the Alexandria Station improvements. Rich, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are recommending authorization to amend the task order for design for the Alexandria Station improvements. On this particular project, we're just right in the final throes, if you will, of final design efforts. Through the latter part of the design efforts, there have been some certain elements that just have required some additional effort on behalf of the design team. As stated in the summary, it includes fire alarm systems, condition of the existing tunnel and stairs, and then, of course, some further coordination with the State Historic Preservation Officer. We are currently also working in close coordination with Mike McLaughlin and his team at DRPT, because this is one of the projects that that we need to coordinate with the fourth track project. Again, we're anticipating a final design and preparation for solicitation, hopefully by the end of this calendar year, with a solicitation happening sometime, or a solicitation for construction happening sometime in the first quarter of 2021. That's my summary, Mr. Chair.
May I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 8I?
Bennett Parker, move the resolution.
Supervisor Bailey?
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Please go ahead.
I noticed that on these last few contracts, or it kind of begs the question on any of them, do we have value engineering clauses in our contracts?
Yes, and there's value engineering. I'll just say clauses, or we promote that within those agreements. So.
Do we, and I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I have an additional question. Do we ever, because I haven't seen any value engineering improvements that have been recommended by the contractor, so that's why I'm asking, are they brought to the board or just absorbed?
Those would not typically be brought to the board at this time. No, that's just simply part of the internal process that we work through between staff and the design teams. We have not previously done that.
Thank you.
Any more comments or questions? Will the clerk please read the call roll for the vote to approve item 8I?
Mr. Alcorn?
Aye.
Ms. Bailey?
Aye.
Mr. Banks?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Aye.
Ms. Shelton?
Aye.
Mr. Skinner?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Snelling? Mr. Stork?
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw?
Aye.
And Mr. Chairman, that resolution passes.
Thank you very much. Going on to item 8J, authorization to execute a contract for the construction management services for the life cycle overhaul and the upgrade facility. Rich, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're seeking authorization to award the construction management services contract to Gannett Fleming of Fairfax, Virginia, in an amount of $2,997,228 plus a 10% contingency. This is a contract, obviously, that provides that construction management and oversight for the soon-to-be construction of the life cycle overhaul and upgrade facility. The Operations Board has previously approved a solicitation for the construction in addition to the construction management services. This will allow us to bring in the construction management team. They will have an opportunity to briefly look at our bid and solicitation packages, and we'll get the solicitation for construction of the facility out later this summer, and hopefully come back to you with another award for the life cycle overhaul and upgrade facility in the form of a construction contract. So that's my summary, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 8J?
This is Supervisor Shelton. I'll make a motion.
Who seconded it, please?
Supervisor.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments at this time? Seeing none, ask the clerk roll call for the vote to approve item 8J.
Mr. Alcorn?
Aye.
Ms. Bailey? Mr. Banks?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Crystal?
Aye.
Ms. Franklin?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Aye.
Ms. Shelton?
Aye.
Mr. Skinner?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Snelling? Mr. Stork?
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, this motion passed.
Thank you very much. Well, folks, that does it for our action items. We've got an item under information items. It's under spending authority report. I've asked Rich to go ahead and give us an overview of it.
Sure. This is, of course, the spending authority report. A little lengthy this time, simply because we're going back and capturing the February, March, and April timeframes. You do have the complete agenda item in your package. Just briefly summarize, in February we did issue a blanket purchase order to Verizon Wireless. We also issued a task order STV to provide design services for our headquarters. In March, we issued a purchase order to JMA Rail Products for electronic fuel injector assemblies for our locomotives. We also did a task order with Michael Baker to provide construction management services for the Benchmark Road slope repair project. again, another task order to Michael Baker for, to provide some general planning support, a blanket purchase order, again, to JMA Rail Products for air filters, fuel filters, oil filters for locomotives. And then finally in March, we did a purchase order with Harco Manufacturing for diesel oxidation catalyst elements for locomotives. And then in April, we did a task order with HDR Engineering for design services for LaFont Station, task order to Fresh Air to replace signage at stations. We did a task order with VHB to provide some conceptual design for the proposed relocation of the future Manassas Park parking garage. And then we did a task order with Michael Baker to provide aviation planning and related services for Broad Run. I'll summarize it to say in this period, as I mentioned in my comments, that, we continue to, maintain our equipment. We continue to push projects along. And this just simply reflects some of that work that we've been doing even over the last 64 days to maintain and continue continuity of business operations. So that's my summary, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Does anybody have any comments or questions for Rich on that? All right, hearing none, I will ask, first of all, we go to Leslie. Do we have anybody that did electronic comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I had one electronic public comment come in from Mr. Donovan Smith from Stafford. His comment reads, Amtrak has implemented a mandatory facial covering policy. Does VRE intend to implement a mandatory facial covering policy as well? Pre-COVID-19, I commuted via VRE from Quantico to Union Station Monday through Friday. Before I resume commuting on VRE, I need assurance that VRE is taking steps to protect their passengers.
Thank you, Leslie. Rich, I think we talked about this earlier. If we can go back over what we thought, what your position is.
Yeah, just as you recall back in my comments, I did speak to the enhancements that we've done and are currently continue to look at from a lessons learned and a best practice standpoint, and those efforts will continue. Specifically for base coverings, as I mentioned, that is something that we too are analyzing, as others are, and we're in discussions with not only our legal counsel but other stakeholders on effectively if we mandate that, simply how do we enforce that? How do we make that consistent across the system? So rest assured that we are receiving a lot of good guidance, not just locally, regionally, but nationally, and to some degree internationally as well. We're trying to simply integrate all of those efforts into some best practices for us, as I said at the end of my comments, simply just to ensure a safe and healthy commute for our passengers.
And Rich, I'd just like to add one thing to that. The question really is, how do we implement it, and how do we make sure we do it? And I think that's legal guidance that we'll be asking for in the future as far as how do we enforce this. I think it's a very touchy situation. I know it's been done in other areas, but I think what we'll do is probably rely on our legal counsel to give us some help with that as we go on further. Is there any other comments?
That was all.
All right. What we're going to do real quick is ask you for board members' time. Leslie, we'll call your name. If you have anything, please, we'll go through the same roll call. Let us know what your comments are. Thank you.
Mr. Alcorn.
No comments.
Ms. Bailey.
No comments.
Mr. Banks. Ms. Bennett Parker.
I had a follow-up question on the last point, which was, I guess, when can we expect that analysis to be concluded? I would note that WMATA has required face masks for their passengers. And I think from a consistency perspective and from the points the passenger raised, I would be interested in seeing us pursue such a policy. And I'm just wondering when we'll have sort of that. I understand enforcement is an issue and a concern, but I'm understanding when we can expect to see sort of the next steps.
So Mr. Chair, I'll just say it's days, not weeks. I mean, we're in the throes of this right now. One of the other elements that we're looking at too is that, you know, if we do mandate face coverings, you know, frankly, there's still an issue with the supply chain, and we've just recently noticed, even in the last couple of days, you know, that the supply chain is you know, is starting. We're starting to see, you know, some increased availability of face coverings and you know, other protective gear and stuff like that. I'll just say one of the things that we want to make sure of is that, you know, if we do mandate something like that, that folks have an opportunity to go, you know, to have those face coverings, because at the end of the day, we just want to make this seamless and not a, you know, we don't want to be denying boarding and all that and all those types of negative things on our system. So again, I don't have a specific date, but it will be, you know, it's days, not weeks, particularly because we are getting a lot of updated information now.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Crystal, do you have any comments?
No additional comments. Thank you.
Ms. Franklin?
I just want to briefly say we had a PRTC meeting last week where we went over the revised budget. Obviously, a lot of transportation commissions are revising their budgets and trimming down based on COVID and ridership. But we did have a productive meeting and hope to approve the budget in June. So thank you to everyone who participated.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly, comments?
No comments.
Ms. Lawson?
Pass.
Mr. Smith?
No comment.
Mr. Kelly? Mr. Stork?
No comment. I'm good. I'm good.
Mr. McLaughlin, did I get you?
No, but it's okay. No comments.
Mr. Walkinshaw?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on Ms. Bennett Parker's question and just note that Fairfax Connector buses are now requiring face coverings.
Has left the meeting.
Requiring face coverings for passengers. So, you know, if we still have questions or concerns about implementation, it sounds like there are a number of agencies that have already worked through those that we might be able to reach out to if we still have questions. So that's my only comment.
Thank you.
That concludes the comments.
I have a couple comments real quick. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. If there are any recommendations to make it better or quicker, please let us know. I would say that our next meeting in June, correct? Our next meeting in June, I'm not sure where the COVID-19 will stand, but we always have this option open. And if some people want to attend in person, we can set something of that nature and the other people call in. So we'll be discussing that and giving each member an opportunity to let us know what they think. But as you all know, we're just waiting to see where we go with COVID-19 and what the governor does for us and what demands and regulations we're going to have to follow. Before I go, I want to remind the members of the CEO Search Committee to stand by after this meeting adjourns. And beforehand, Katie, do you have the closed session motion? I do have it in front of me, so it's up to you whether you would like to read it or I could read it for you.
I do, Mr. Chair. I'd be happy to read it. And just to clarify, this is a motion to go into closed session for the CEO Operations Committee. So we only need those members of that committee, or excuse me, CEO Search Committee. So we only need the members of that committee, which are yourself, Mr. Chair, Ms. Lawson, Ms. Bennett Parker, Mr. Walkinshaw, Mr. McLaughlin, and Mr. Kelly to vote on this motion. And I know that's a little confusing, so I wanted to take a second to clarify that.
Well, what I'd like to do right now, Katie, if we could adjourn the meeting with those people staying on. Once we've adjourned the meeting, I'll turn it over to you, and we'll vote on your motion then.
Excellent. That's a great strategy. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, this is President Stork.
Go ahead, please.
I just want to confirm, I guess, other members are permitted to attend the meeting as well, the search meeting.
Yes, other members who's wishing to attend can attend.
Thank you.
But I'm sorry, is that Mr. Stork? I need to send him the platform information if he'd like to dial in and join us.
Yes, it is. This is Supervisor Crystal. Yes, and I'm intending to attend. If you could send it to me, it'd be wonderful.
I will send that to you right now.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. What I'll do now is ask for a motion to adjourn and a second.
Motion to adjourn, Shelton.
Second, Supervisor Bailey.
Thank you. Will you please call the roll call?
Mr. Alcorn.
Aye.
Ms. Bailey.
Aye.
Mr. Banks. Ms. Bennett Parker.
Aye.
Ms. Crystal.
Aye.
Ms. Franklin. Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Ms. Lawson.
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Aye.
Ms. Shelton.
Aye.
Mr. Skinner.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Stork.
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, that motion passes and the VRE Operations Board is adjourned.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for attending. I will now turn it over to Chair Crystal to handle the
meeting.
search committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Skinner. Search Committee colleagues, I move that pursuant to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, Section 2.2, 3711A1 of the Code of Virginia, I move that the VRE Operations Board CEO Search Committee convene a closed session for the purpose of discussing a personnel matter involving candidates for appointment by the Operations Board and the Commission.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Chairman Skinner. And I do believe we need a vote of the members of the committee.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ma'am, I'm happy to do that if that's helpful. I don't know if you'd like to.
Please do.
Okay, great. Okay, so Ms. Crystal, aye. Mr. Skinner?
Aye.
Ms. Bennett Parker? Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw?
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Aye.
And Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Great. Thank you all very much. So we are now going to transition over to the separate platform where our consultants from Baker Tilly will be waiting for us.
We're coming right to you here.
Do any members of the committee not have the information about that platform, or is everyone all right to transition?
I'm looking for what I'm supposed to be looking for.
Matt, I can forward you the invitation again, just so you've got it at the.
Yeah, please send it to my personal email, because that's what I'm using, my personal computer right now.
Ah, okay. Hang on 1 second. Okay, Matt, can you give me that?
It's
I
Kelly.
don't have the Fredericksburg.
Okay, KELLY 058 at verizon.net.
Got it. Okay, coming your way. Is everyone else all right with moving over to the Baker Tilly Zoom platform? Does anybody else see the information?
All right, I'm going to drop out of this and go over to that.
Okay, I'm going to do the same. Thank you. I'll see you shortly.
Katie?
Yeah.
A
Yeah,
participant has left the meeting.
It's Janine. Can I take a 5-minute
James
bathroom
Walkinshaw.
coffee break?
Has left the
Of course.
meeting.
Why don't we, I'm just going to go ahead and get set up there, but we will, let's say we probably won't get started till closer to 10:30. Of course.
All right, I'll hurry. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
If I can,
Yes, sir, go ahead.
would you
Hey, Crystal.
just remind everybody not to go off
Has
of
left the
our,
meeting.
our VRE meeting?
I think,
Okay.
Crystal just left.
Okay, no problem. Okay, you should start seeing these pop on now.
And for anybody that's remaining on this meeting, we will be moving you into the lobby, until they come back and read the closing resolution.
Katie.
has joined the meeting.
Okay, I think we've got some VRE staff on with us, so thank you guys so much. We are rejoining from our closed session.
Elizabeth Bennett Parker
has joined the meeting.
Okay, just looking at who all is with us. James, Janine, Mike, Steve. I think we are still waiting for Gary and Matt. We can certify.
Katie, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Gary. Fabulous. And I think we have
Okay.
Matt Kelly now too, right?
Okay, so, Katie,
All right,
Katie, if we could get a quick roll call before we certify to make sure everybody made it back.
Okay, sounds great. Do you want to do that or shall I?
We'll let you go ahead and do it, please. Thank you.
Okay, great. So Mr. Skinner, I think is a yes. Ms.
Yes.
Bennett Parker? You with us?
Aye.
Great. All right. Ms. Lawson, are you with us?
I'm here.
Great. Mr. Walkinshaw?
Yes.
Great. Mr. McLaughlin?
Here.
Okay, and Mr. Kelly?
Here.
All right. Great. So Gary, if you're ready, I'll go ahead and make the motion to certify.
Go ahead.
Okay. Great. So I'm going to move that each VRE Operations Board CEO committee member certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge and with no individual members dissenting at the just concluded closed session, number one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Freedom of Information Act were discussed, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed session was convened were heard, discussed, or considered. Is there a second?
Second. Gary.
Fabulous. Okay, moved by Ms. Crystal, seconded by Mr. Skinner. I think we should probably do another roll call vote on that, just to make sure we've got it right. So Mr. Skinner?
Aye.
All right. Ms. Bennett Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Walkinshaw?
I just need to stay around for about.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
And Mr. McLaughlin?
Aye.
Okay, Ms. Crystal is aye. All right, that vote is unanimous, recorded at 12:07. Thank you all very much. So, Mr. Chair, unless you have anything else, I think we are ready to adjourn.
Just have a great weekend. Be safe out there.
All right. Thanks, Gary. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Bye.
All right. Thank you. Can you mute us,
Katie.
please?
Has left the meeting.
Elizabeth Bennett Parker.
Has left the meeting. Has left the meeting.